At 2:13 hours local time, the Black Sea Fleet lost control of its own port. Novorossiysk was still dark. By 2:21, it wasn't. The first Ukrainian drones crossed the Black Sea at low altitude, their navigation systems following pre-programmed corridors that exploited every known gap in Russian radar coverage. They emitted nothing. No signals, no warning. Just a silent approach over open water. Behind them, a second wave followed. And behind that, something Russia had already failed to stop once before. Unmanned surface vessels. Sea baby platforms cut through the water at high speed, riding low, barely visible against the surface. Each one carried enough explosive force to cripple a warship if it got close enough. This wasn't a strike. It was a layered assault. And it had already begun long before the first drone reached the harbor. Hours earlier, Ukrainian ISR assets had mapped the entire port. Satellite imagery, maritime tracking, thermal signatures from docked vessels, radar emissions from layered air defenses. Everything was fused into a single targeting picture. Every ship had a box around it. Every radar had a priority level. Every defense system had already been assigned a kill sequence. This wasn't chaos. This was execution. At 2:24, the first Russian radar picked something up. Low altitude, multiple contacts. Too many to classify. Operators inside an S-400 battery attempted to resolve the tracks, but the returns were inconsistent. Some disappeared, others split. The system struggled to distinguish between real threats and noise, because at the same moment, electronic warfare hit. Ukrainian EW units began flooding the spectrum, distorting radar returns, delaying tracking solutions, injecting false signals into the defensive network. What the operators saw on their screens no longer matched reality, and that delay was everything. The first drone wave entered the outer defense perimeter. Then the explosions began. Aerial drones dove toward radar installations, targeting antenna arrays and fire control nodes. One impacted near a tracking radar. Another struck a support vehicle. A third detonated above a communications relay. The effect wasn't total destruction. It didn't need to be. It created gaps. And through those gaps, the next wave came. Sea-skimming drones pushed closer to the harbor, their guidance systems adjusting in real time as they navigated toward pre-assigned targets. Russian defensive fire began to intensify. Tracer rounds cut across the water, close-in weapon systems activated. But the targeting picture was already degraded. Engagement timing was off. And the drones kept coming. At 2:31, the first impact hit inside the port. A Ukrainian aerial drone slammed into the hull of the Admiral Essen, striking near its midsection. The explosion triggered secondary detonations within the ship's countermeasure systems. Chaff launchers ignited. Internal systems failed. Moments later, a second strike followed. The frigate's defensive network, its electronic warfare suite, its missile guidance systems began to collapse. And with that, the port lost one of its key defensive nodes. Nearby, another drone wave struck a Project 266M minesweeper. The Valentin Pikul absorbed multiple impacts along its structure. Explosions tore through external systems, damaging its anti-submarine capabilities and onboard defenses. Fire spread across the deck. A vessel designed to protect others was now out of the fight. Then the chain reaction accelerated. Two Project 1124M Albatross ships, Yeysk and Kasimov, were hit in rapid succession. Both were still moored, unable to maneuver, unable to evade. Drone impacts ignited fires across their hulls, disabling propulsion and weapon systems. Within minutes, 3 layers of Russia's anti-submarine and port defense capability were gone, and the attack wasn't slowing down. At 2:37, a sea drone breached the inner harbor. It slammed into the stern of a Project 1241 Molnia, detonating directly near the engine compartment. The explosion ripped through propulsion systems, igniting fuel reserves and disabling the vessel completely. Another missile platform. Neutralized. 5 ships, all hit. all inside a port that was supposed to be safe, but the ships weren't the main target. They were just the beginning. Because as the naval defenses collapsed, something else became exposed. Radar coverage dropped, fire control degraded, and that opened the door for the second phase. At 2:42, Ukrainian drones shifted targets. Deep inside the port, the Sheskari's oil terminal became visible, unprotected, vulnerable. The next wave hit. Explosions tore through storage infrastructure, igniting massive fires that spread rapidly across fuel reserves. Flames climbed into the night sky, turning darkness into daylight. Thick black smoke began rising above the port, visible for kilometers. But even that wasn't the critical hit. Not yet, because just beyond the terminal stood the systems that were supposed to prevent all of this. An S-300 radar, a Panzer S-2 battery, and elements of the S-400 network still trying to recover from the initial disruption. They didn't get the chance. Precision drone strikes targeted radar arrays directly. Antennas shattered. Tracking systems failed. Guidance capabilities disappeared in seconds. One system went offline, then another. Then another. And with each one that fell, the sky over Novorossiysk opened wider. This was the cascade. Not a single strike. A system collapse. Naval defense arrow degraded. Air defense arrow exposed. Infrastructure to burning. And now, nothing was stopping what came next. Additional drones penetrated deeper into the port, targeting logistics nodes, loading berths, and support facilities. 6 oil loading points were destroyed. Supply flow disrupted. Fuel transfer operations halted. This wasn't just damage, it was paralysis. Back on the ships, fires continued to spread. Crews attempted damage control, but with systems offline and multiple impact points across the port, coordination was breaking down. 3 sailors were confirmed killed. More wounded. But the real loss wasn't personnel. It was capability. The Admiral Essen could no longer launch caliber cruise missiles. The minesweeper could no longer protect against underwater threats. The corvettes could no longer patrol or defend. The missile boat was finished. And that changed everything. Because Novorossiysk wasn't just a port. It was Russia's fallback. After losing dominance in Sevastopol, the Black Sea Fleet had moved here believing distance would equal safety. It didn't. Ukraine adapted, extended its range, built new systems, and waited. This strike was the result of that evolution. Not just longer reach, but deeper integration. ISR, EW's drone swarms, maritime strike capability, all combined into a single operation, and now the consequences were unfolding. With 5 additional ships disabled, Russia's Black Sea Fleet dropped further below operational viability. Already weakened, already pushed back, it now faced a new reality. There was no safe harbor. Anywhere inside the Black Sea was within reach. And more importantly, within pattern. Because now Ukraine had done it again. Identified defenses, mapped responses, exploited gaps. The next strike wouldn't start from zero. It would start from here. From a port with weakened radar coverage, reduced fleet strength, damaged infrastructure, and fewer options. Back above the burning harbor, Ukrainian drones continued to orbit, feeding live data back to command. Fires, damage zones, surviving systems, all tracked in real time. This wasn't just a strike. It was reconnaissance for the next one. Because nothing about this operation suggested a peak, only progression. The Black Sea Fleet had already lost a third of its strength before this night. Now it had lost more, and it hadn't even left port. The fires in Novorossiysk burned through the early morning hours, lighting up a harbor that was never supposed to be touched. But it was. And now, it could be again.